So, I rarely make these videos, but I felt like today was one of these days where the replay just worked really well with what I wanted to show off. And this is meant to be like not a combo guide, but more of an in-depth kind of discussion of how to play my version of Libromancer. The whole budget deck obviously plays a bit different because we don't do crazy shenanigans with Ben 10 and locking people out of special summoning with Vanity's Ruler and lots of different things. This is the Doombroker control kind of variant. If you're interested in budget decks, then this would be the way. I feel like the deck is easily played in a sense. You don't need to invest into like crazy expensive cards if you just want to get a wee grasp of how the deck works and what you can do with it. And let's start off with the hand that we have. Obviously, it's good that we have 2 Forbidden Chalice. This is not something you'd be getting too used to. Usually, you should have round about 1 extra disruption in addition to your Doombroker search. This time we have 2, so this works quite well, but in the end it didn't overly matter. It obviously makes the game a bit easier, but it didn't overly matter. We have one of our normal summons. It's not to get the field spell, but we have Geek Boy, so we get into the field spell anyway, and we already have a Ritual Monster, so I would say this is a pretty good hand for this specific variant, but I mainly want to show off the resource circle that you can basically do and explain how I would be playing the hand and the mistakes that I made along the line. My opponent probably made some mistakes. I'm not the most I'm just spoilering. It's speedroids, and yeah, I don't 100% know what you could have done better in certain situations. I'm not like a speedroid main or anything, so you know, they'll do stuff and I'll negate stuff, and you'll see how that works out. So starting off, things that we can do first, obviously we could go for Geek Boy first, search the field spell, and then pop off from there, but we want to keep in mind, what do we need in hand, where doesn't it matter if your opponent disrupts us. So some people, especially like if you're not playing like high platinum, high diamond and whatnot, they might ask you if you actually go for Manju first, and in this scenario we didn't need another Ritual Monster. It did help if we get the search through, but we definitely did not want our Geek Boy to get negated. We would want our Manju to get negated. So obviously what we do first is we go for the Manju, normal summon Manju, search. I went for Doombroker here. Possibly could have gone for something else, but in the end Doombroker is the one that we want to search anyway, and that gives us more resources to go off of the field spell. So in the end, Doombroker search was probably the best we could have done here. We could technically have used Chalice Lime and discarded one of the Forbidden Chalices, or even discarded the Manju technically to get those plays started. It doesn't really matter because we're not focused on the extra deck in this deck, so locking yourself out of this with the incantations doesn't really matter too much. I kind of wanted to keep this card in hand though, because we didn't really need it. We could have gained some more stuff, but I wanted to keep it so I have 1 Ritual Monster safe in hand. And this card can discard any kind of stuff, not just itself. So we could technically gain resources each turn if we're somehow getting behind and we have to make up for some stuff. If they get rid of our Doombroker, then we can recover it from the graveyard and so on. So I decided to not go for a Chalice Lime here because it felt kind of overkill and we didn't really need that. So now we can go for Geek Boy, hoping they don't have an Ash Blossom, because that would screw us up a little bit. There would still be like some ways to salvage it with the incantation, but I gladly did not have to do this. We activate the field spell, and usually in this scenario, especially in this variant, you would want to get fire out now, because fire can search you something else, and something else is always good. With this, you would usually then search Doombroker, and Doombroker then searches the trap. Since we already have Doombroker, we can then special summon fire, and with fire actually grab Agent, which will be important for the next turn. This turn Agent doesn't really matter. It recurs stuff from the graveyard, and technically we can now Ritual Summon, send stuff, one of those to the graveyard, then add them back to the hand with Agent, but then we kind of lose Agent for the next turn, and Agent is the resource circle that we have, that we can cycle stuff out of the graveyard, our disruptions, and keep building up more disruptions with our Doombroker. That should be staying safe in our hand, because that is kind of what the trap card does. So we activate the field spell, we activate the field spell to Ritual Summon. We use those two because we do want fire in the graveyard, because it's important for the trap, because the trap gains you resources because you can summon a monster during your opponent's turn. This is the trap we go for. Intervention, you mainly want to go for this because you can negate spell traps as well. It's a bit annoying because it doesn't destroy, but mainly this card is, if you don't know what your opponent is playing, this card is a lot better than the monster steal. You can go for the steal later on, but first I would suggest always go for intervention, because this card just does a lot more. And if you actually use the effect, then you can special summon one Libromancer from your hand or graveyard. So this is why I wanted to get fire into the graveyard, because then during their turn I can summon fire. Fire gains me more cards, and then I can get an agent back, and if I then have an agent, I can use that card, or I can get the fire ritual monster that goes for more of an OTK kind of thing. So this is how you basically set yourself up. We have nothing else we want to do, so we just pass with a triple disruption kind of thing, and now we wait for what's our opponent playing. They activate the speedroid card, search stuff. I don't really think in most builds you would be playing speedroid scratch, even though it is a search, and some monsters do stuff in the graveyard. Like, it's not a terrible card, but it obviously doesn't plus you, that kind of minuses you for getting certain stuff. For some reason they search this card, maybe they already have their crazy combo starters, I don't know. And then from there onwards they go out. I kind of know speedroids to the point that they have certain choke points where you still can you can disrupt them. If the only problem is if they get a level 7 on here, a level 7 synchro, then that can be problematic, because even negating the effects, you won't be OTK'd, but they will still like run over your stuff, and you will lose resources and yeah, kind of don't want that to happen. But at this point they weren't. They were going for the link monster, and putting some cards up in that time, of getting one extra card to your hand, that's never bad. And now they special summon the other one, because that opens them up for Aurora Dawn plays, which they have not done yet. But we can just speed though. Well, let's not speed this up. Let's go through it like this. They use the Speedroid Rubber Band, and the thing is, this card doesn't negate the effects of the monster of the card, it just negates the activation. So if you, because this card has 2 effects, I would want to use one of the Forbidden Chalices, so they don't get any of those 2 effects, which is what I'm doing. So less resources for them, and we still have the whole combo of the trap card. So we get them on that one. Now they go into Aurora Dawn, same problem. Aurora Dawn has 2 effects, which doesn't really matter the second one. Like, yes, they can pop a card, and that can be annoying, but this is the one that you usually want to be shutting down. But I use Chalice because I have Chalice. It didn't really matter. Technically, you could have used Intervention, and it would have still been okay-ish. Not too bad in that scenario, but it could have, obviously, Chalice in this situation is better, although they can run over my card now, but they could anyway by banishing those 2. And since I knew they can, and I want to get the research, the search off, obviously you usually don't want to negate this kind of effect. It just gives them attack points, which doesn't really matter. But I could protect my life points a little bit at least, and I can get the effect of this card is safe in my hand. Then I have another ritual monster in hand if I have to use the incantation effect, and also I get the trap card to the graveyard, so the whole agent thing still works. And I will be summoning fire back, and that gets me another card. So I thought, why not? I don't think they can be doing much after this. Obviously I could have been wrong. Usually kind of want to hold this, but if they would have just gone to the battle phase, then I could have done anything with that anyway. So we use the effect of fire, summon fire back, and get fire burst, which is obviously a very, very good card. And yes, they didn't have anything else anymore, like I kind of thought. But if they had another good normal summon, this could have turned somewhat bad. I had like a little bit of a defense wall. I didn't really care if those 2 were still on board, so I probably would have been fine. I could have held the trap a bit longer and just saw what they did. But then in the end, yeah, you never know. But that's just my train of thoughts. Obviously, if you hold the trap a bit longer there, then you should still be fine, I would say, but they might just go into the battle phase then and run over you, and then you can't activate the trap the way you want to anymore. So I just decided to do it that way then, because that was the last activation I would get out of it till they could go to the battle phase. I draw into Pathfinder here. Technically, there's multiple ways of how you can play this now. You could summon Pathfinder, go for another field spell, activate the field spell, then add another Libromancer to your hand. I decided not to go for that route. I'm not sure why. It wouldn't have mattered all that much in the end, but I kind of didn't want to deck thin at this point. I kind of didn't want to get any Libromancer stuff. At this point, you could have gone for like Magic Girl or the level 4 Libromancer that's not fire. Technically, that would have been fine. I decide to go first for the agent loop. You'll see what happens here. Agent gets stuff out of the graveyard. So we get that trap back, we put Chalice Line back in because we now have 2 ritual monsters. That should be fine for future turns because we can bounce one back to our hand. Technically even both, because now Doombroker can search the next card, then we ritual summon Doombroker, obviously, because that works level wise quite well. Going into Doombroker search the other trap that actually does stuff, which is stealing opponent's monster. Then we summon the other monster, because with Pathfinder we actually had enough levels, so that worked out, so we can get Fireburst out. And here I do make a bit of a mistake in the battle phase, well, not one that overly matters. Would have just given your opponent, I think, like 1,400 more damage than in the end I did, because I attack first with Doombroker, and Doombroker can attack directly, and then you can shuffle 1 face-up monster into the deck. And I thought this card can attack twice, but in general, but it can only attack twice on monsters. I put this card in quite new because I thought, oh, maybe this is going to enhance like the OTK ability. I didn't run it at the start, and that was when I started testing with this card. So in my mind I was like, oh, I can attack twice and then I do double damage, but it is only onto monsters, which makes a lot more sense. Otherwise the card would be quite strong, but I feel like ritual monsters that do battle stuff do need to be quite strong actually. So yeah, should have probably attack with this card, this first, then this one, then would have attacked directly, then this would have been the graveyard, not be shuffled back to the extra deck as well, so they couldn't have used it the next turn. Would have been better, but the more you know, now you guys know at least what I'm talking about. Now we set the other card, we still have 2 disruptions, they only have 3 cards, they have some graveyard resources, but if you play it smart, they should not get all that much out of there, and they already go for that one. I don't negate this because I feel like they can't really do much with that anyway. They now get rid of Takatomborg to go into one of the another tuner, and I think at this point they know I have the negate, and they have to go into one of the link monsters, and I think they're trying to like activate every kind of effect to bait out my negate and hope that I will use it on something else, because they use like lots of effects. They change the level of that, change the level of that again, just to go into make a Phantom Beast again. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to do all that much. You have 1 card in hand, you've got Aurora Dawn. What else can you really be doing from here? They activate the effect. Here's the problem, that they could still use the effect. Then I negate it, get Doombroker back to my hand, because I know I can now get another agent, and I will be able to do stuff next turn, so I'm quite fine actually. And now they can pop 1 card, but that's not all that bad. If they decide to pop the trap cards, then yeah, it's not annoying, but I'll still finish them. If they don't pop the trap card, if they pop my ritual, I can still get the ritual back with agent if I need to finish, and they can't really do anything from there onwards. I still have another trap that does work if I don't control a ritual monster, so in the end it didn't matter. And now they realize there's nothing much more they can do, because I can recycle stuff again. I can set another trap and even stop them basically from using stuff for synchro summoning the next turn. And yeah, that was all I can say to this. Very good gameplay. I feel very educational, and hope you enjoyed the little insight into how to play the Libromancer control.